Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another session of Coffee and Capital. Happy to have you with us. For those of you joining for the first time, welcome. And for our return attendees, welcome back. This morning, we are joined by Marie Wax, Strategic and Technical Advisor to the Biomedical Advanced Research and Development Authority, or BARDA, working with their Division of Research, Innovation, and Ventures, aka DRIVe. In her work with BARDA, she supports the implementation of innovative processes and the development of medical diagnostics, predictive analytics, infection severity, and monitoring tools. Marie will be sharing more about her work with BARDA in just a few moments here. But as usual, as you know, if you've been here before, we're going to have each of you introduce yourselves before we get to Marie. So we're just going to quickly go around the room, as it were. There we go. All right. Yeah, so we're just going to give very brief introductions to ourselves. So when I call on you, if you could just please give your name, your company, or your idea, if it's in that stage, and what stage of funding you find yourself. This will just be a nice way for us to all have a sense of who's in the room and give Marie a little context when you're asking your questions. So I'll just be going in the order that I see folks in on my screen. And why don't we start with Robert?
Hi, I'm Bob Ward. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I was CEO of Radius Health, brought them public back in 2014, as well as Elox Pharmaceuticals. Currently serve on the board of Oncosect. So I'm an early stage investor. Over the last 10 years, I've raised about $950 million from public and private sources to fund biotech companies.
Excellent. Thank you, Bob. Thanks for joining. All right, next up, Jerry, if you would.
Good morning. My name is Jerry Ann Thatcher, and I'm CEO of Flow Bio. We are developing an in vitro diagnostic for bleeding and thrombotic risk. I'm a first-time entrepreneur and drinking from a fire hose, as they say. And we've raised a little over $1 million. Much of it is non-dilutive, and we're looking to go into a Series A over the next 3 to 6 months.
Excellent. Good to have you, Jerry Ann. Thanks for joining. Next up on my screen, I see Mohit.
Hey, good morning, everyone. So Mohit Prajapati, I'm CTO of Penn Health Tech, as well as the Center for Healthcare Innovation. And we leverage our ecosystem to do product development work that can turn into licensable assets for Penn, whether that turns into a license that goes to an existing OEM or spinning out new startups.
Cool. Excellent. Welcome. Christina.
Hi, my name is Christina Wessels. I'm a program coordinator for the Biolocity team, and we fund biomedical research at Emory University and Georgia Tech. We're also a part of the BARDA DRIVe Accelerator Network, and just like to attend other events and learn more when we can.
Great, great. Good to have you, Christina. Is it Baruch?
Yes. Good morning, everybody. My name is Baruch Ben-Dor. I'm a CEO of Infrascan, which developed a handheld device for detection of brain bleeding. Most of the funding so far came from the DoD for use on battlefield, and the system is fielded in all Marines Battalion aid stations. And currently we're looking to working with BARDA and bringing our innovation also for disaster medicine and use in US. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Baruch. All right, Judith, if you would.
Hi, I'm Judith Sheft. I'm the Executive Director of the New Jersey Commission on Science, Innovation, and Technology. We fund early stage companies in the life sciences and tech area in New Jersey. We've had a number of our universities participate in various QED programs and wanted to learn more about the BARDA activity.
Excellent. All right. Well, you're in the right place. All right. Who is up next? David.
I'm David Clark. I am in the VP of Business Development and Sales in the US, and I work with Baruch Ben-Dor at Infrascan.
Great. All right. Good to have you here. Chris.
Hello, good morning, everybody. I apologize for being a few minutes late. Good morning. My name is Chris Shubershevsky. I'm with US Biologic, and we have a platform by which we are delivering a range of vaccines and therapeutics to stop zoonotic diseases and other animal-borne diseases and infectious states in animals.
Great. Thank you, Chris. Stephanie.
Hi, good morning. I'm Stephanie Baum. I'm with MedCity News. We're a web-based publication that focuses on innovation in life science and healthcare. Although we're not entrepreneurs as such, we love writing about entrepreneurs. And I'm actually here to gain some insight about non-dilutive funding, a non-dilutive funding panel we're doing at our upcoming precision medicine conference. And so I'm very interested in sort of BARDA's approach and learning more about it.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you, Stephanie. Elizabeth.
Hi, good morning, everybody. It's Beth White. I'm the Chief Business and Strategy Officer for New XL Therapeutics, which is a preclinical stage gene therapy company. We're delivering transcription factors directly into the brain to generate new neurons in neurodegenerative conditions. And we're in the second sort of pre-A round and looking for a Series A round probably later this year.
Great. Thank you, Beth. And last but not least, Anne, if you would.
Good morning, Anne Helligas with Helm System Solutions. I work with a number of small and mid-size R&D companies who are all interested in BARDA, want to learn more. A lot of them do algorithm development and other kinds of technology development. So this was a chance to learn a little bit more about BARDA. Thank you.
Thank you, Anne. Good to have you here. All right. I know I said last but least, but we actually had a couple people join us in that time. So Glenn, if you would, we're just giving very brief introductions to ourselves. So if you could just share your company, what stage of funding you're in, or what brings you on the call this morning, that'd be great to hear from you.
So I am Dr. Glenn Mitchell. I am the Vice Provost for Institutional Effectiveness and Research at Harrisburg University of Science and Technology in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. So I am responsible for building out the research program of our relatively young university, and certainly very interested in BARDA as a potential for our future.
Great. Thank you. And Tina, I think you were still connecting to audio when I was speaking. So if you could, if you just want to introduce yourself and give your company and what stage of funding you're in, or whatever brings you on the call, it'd be nice to hear from you.
Hi, yes, my name is Tina Catalone. I work for Penn State. I'm with the Center for Medical Innovation at Penn State. And I was just interested in expanding our network a little bit and learning about some of the activities that you have going on here.
Perfect. All right. Thank you for joining us.
Sure. All
right. I know there are some names I'm not getting to. My Science Center colleagues, as you all know, no offense, but we'll just move on to our speaker here, just for the sake of time. So thank you for joining us, though, as always. All right. So once again, I would like to welcome and thank Marie Wax for joining us this morning. Marie, if you could, please just share a little bit about yourself, the work you do with BARDA, and tell us about the funding opportunities available for technologies advancing sepsis treatment.
Sure, thanks, Jake. Well, I'm Marie Wax. I'm a consultant and contractor to BARDA DRIVe. And for those who don't know what BARDA is the Biomedical Advanced Research and Development Authority. We're part of Health and Human Services Assistant Secretary Preparedness and Response. It's a mouthful, but I think of BARDA as the public health and emergency preparedness medical countermeasure aspect of health and human services. And, BARDA really has an impressive record with about, I think, 59 FDA approvals, licenses, and clearances in just a little over 10 years. I support the DRIVe division, which is the Division of Research, Innovation, and Ventures. We think of ourselves as the innovation branch, kind of the restless innovators. The goal of that division is really to take ambitious health security challenges, innovative processes, and also working with the venture capital community to invest in promising products and technologies. And DRIVe really, I believe, has 5 areas of interest open right now. There is ENACT, which is the early notification to act, control, and treat. It's technologies that look for early actionable information, letting you know if technologies that indicate you're sick before you have symptoms. There's Solving Sepsis, which is looking at innovative interventions to reduce the incidence, morbidity, mortality, and cost of sepsis. There's Beyond the Needle, which is transforming vaccinations using alternative routes of vaccine administration. There's the Beyond the Needle, which is, Redirect, which uses available therapeutics to treat symptoms of chemical agent exposure. And I think the newest area of interest is Immune Chip. It really looks to advance tissue chip capabilities for drug development and personalized medicine. I primarily support the Solving Sepsis area of interest, although, I help with a lot of others and across BARDA. The Solving Sepsis program focuses on infection severity technologies, and we look at it throughout the continuum of care. Sepsis really is a complication of any infection, including SARS-CoV-2, and we pivoted a lot of our technologies for COVID-19. Our current funding opportunity is called the EasyBAA. It's a $749,000 contract, and it's really primarily focused this year on diagnostics to be able to stratify and monitor in the pre-hospital setting or emergency room or post-discharge, really outside of that inpatient setting. And we're also looking at pediatric technologies to improve early detection and diagnosis. And then finally, Solving Sepsis is also looking at host-targeted therapeutics to improve clinical management. Those are, the primary interests of Solving Sepsis, but there's, the other areas of interest that I mentioned, they have their details, and you can always check out drive.hhs.gov to really look at those other funding opportunities as well on our website.
Excellent. Thank you for that. And that link is in the chat. Thank you, Eamon. I forgot to mention during the introduction, for folks who might be new here, for the Q&A, if you would, you can please just unmute yourself and ask your questions of Marie directly. If we do end up having problems of crosstalk, we can start queuing up in the chat box just by saying you have a question, and then I can call on you. So feel free to ask away.
Marie, is BARDA and say your #1 program in early disease detection, are you guys interested in phase 1 kind of research or phase 2 pre-commercialization? What stages are you concentrating on, or are you interested in the whole spectrum?
Well, so for Solving Sepsis, it's a little bit different than some of the other areas of interest. Right. So if you're looking more on that early actionable information, like ENACT, I think they look a little bit earlier. Mm-hmm. Solving Sepsis really looks for that preliminary data to show, that you really are focused on sepsis. So we don't necessarily divide it into phase 1 and phase 2, but really looking at what kind of preliminary data you already have to show that you, so to support the use in infection severity or sepsis. So, and that's how we define it. We don't like to do it necessarily by, phases.
Right, thank you.
Marie, I was curious. So prior to submitting to the Solving Sepsis program. Do folks need to demonstrate their technology in a sepsis population?
Yes, we really like to see that that this is really relevant for the sepsis and infection severity population. So we do like to see some preliminary data, and what we really encourage people to do is to have that before you submit an application, you can schedule a call with us. I'll actually drop Solving Sepsis at hhs.gov. If you want to set up a market research call, discuss your technology and help decide if you're a good fit. Other areas of interest also have their own email addresses that's on the DRIVe website. But we really encourage that pre-submission call to discuss your technology. But yes, to your question, we do like to see that that information beforehand.
Great, thank you.
So Marie, what is the process for proposal development? Do you, like, for example, for next year right now, I'm sure that you're thinking about developing new proposals.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a way that one can contribute to help determining what proposals are eligible for funding next year? And second part of that question would be, when a program is successfully delivered on the phase of funding that BARDA has provided, and often that's a point when companies are looking to either license or build a more established presence. Is there a way to keep track of successful achievement from a licensing or technology sourcing perspective? So 2 questions: developing the proposals, and secondly, on the ones that work, how can you keep track of which are the ones that look promising?
Great questions. To your first question, how do you get how do you discuss new ideas? If your idea is in line with, the general area of an area of interest, but may not be exactly what's addressed in the funding opportunity, I really recommend you send an email to that appropriate email address and schedule a call. The program managers are really open to listening how their ideas can evolve. We also work very closely with other branches of BARDA on how we can cross, fund opportunities. So sometimes DRIVe takes that early stage, that earlier stage funding opportunity, but we really want to transition to, a branch, another division of BARDA, and we can also work across other areas of BARDA for those areas of interest as well. So we have this area of BARDA called the Tech Watch portal. It's currently, focused on COVID-19, but it's really our central hub to engage BARDA. And if you have any idea, you can go on medicalcountermeasures.gov, which is the BARDA website, and submit an idea to Tech Watch. They will really, in that form, you really address which branch of BARDA or division of BARDA you want to talk with. And it'll help, and even if it's multiple ones, they try to bring everyone involved. We also work across federal agencies to bring those relevant people as well to talk about an idea. So we're really open to hearing new ideas. DRIVe likes to be that bridge if it's a little bit earlier, or you need to work with another agency or group. So yeah, that to answer that first question. And to your second question, you were asking if
something's worked, it's now ready to have a greater development, or it's kind of outgrown the original proposal and it's ready for the next stage.
Yeah, and so that's an ongoing conversation with the relevant program manager that is discussed along your program. So if you're coming in and you're not funded by BARDA and you're looking for something a little bit more advanced, you have that conversation just like you do with any other idea. But if you're already part of the BARDA ecosystem, that's already going to happen, where we are always thinking about the next step. We're thinking about how you can be successful commercially. We really want to make sure that your technology is successful. For example, in sepsis, we not only care about your infection severity tool and look to fund those, but we also talk with clinicians, appropriate hospital administrators, with our interagency partners to really look at how your technology can be adopted in further after the funding is done.
Thank you.
Marie, It's great to meet you, by the way, and thank you so much for all these insights. Can you give us an idea of post abstract submission phase? What really is the process there? Either if BARDA, looks at the idea and says not right now, or it's not for us, or on the other side saying, we'd like to have that next step of the conversation. What does that look like? Is there, for example, a much fuller proposal in cost analysis, or is there a meeting that you can talk some of these things out? How does that work?
Yeah, good question. It's really meant to be a very simplified process. So I think it's about 25, the actual abstract's about 2,500 words. And the key though is a little bit tricky because you only have 25 words, but we really want to see what you have to say there. Talk about your preliminary data, talk about, your technology, talk about what results you have, and your commercial applications and how you can move this further if given this funding. And, we really rely on that information provided to make that next step decision. BARDA talks internally with subject matter experts, program managers, relevant parties, reviews it. And, if deemed appropriate for that next stage, additional documentation might be asked for, but not necessarily. It really depends what's included. But the 2,500 word abstract is really the key to displaying all your information and can be awarded, just from that to the next stage. Follow-on stages will be, additional documentation is typically required or clarified, but, that's really the basis of a lot of the decision making.
That's great. Thank you. And just, if I can, just a quick follow-up question. Can you give a sense of the timeline? In general, is it, a lot of us probably are familiar with the NIH process, which is many, many months. What does it look like with BARDA?
Yeah, so DRIVe really has focused on making this a priority, and we make awards in as little as 30 days. I think we've even had a 2-week award from submission to end during the pandemic. But on average, it's between 30 and 120 days, depending on the number of submissions at a time. But that's really our timeline from submission to award.
That's great. Thank you. And I guess I'll keep asking questions then. As far as the process with the abstract, sometimes people can read the abstract but not really connect with it per se. Will there be an opportunity for conversations about perhaps a resubmission of that abstract, or conversations about, hey, will you guys just clarify X, Y, and Z so we don't resubmit it, have to resubmit it? Is there a little bit of the interactive process, I guess, after that versus a, hey, thanks, but no thanks?
Well, we really encourage a pre-submission call. So before you submit anything, we really encourage you to talk to the program manager so that the team already has an idea of your technology and data you want to present ahead of time. Once you submit, until there's a response, there might be an opportunity for clarification if there's needed. If something is really, if the information is already outlined, but something is just unclear, there's perhaps a possibility there. But really the focus is on having that pre-submission call so that the technology is really presented, being really clear in the abstract. And we try to make the process really easy so that if you get rejected, it's not the end of the road. You can talk with the program manager after about something new, as you get new data. You can talk to the program manager and their team as you, based on your feedback. If there's, a new area you want to explore, for example, you can always have another call after to talk about a new idea or additional information that you get if you weren't successful that first time.
And can I ask a question in terms of what percentage of the applications typically get funded? We know, for example, on SBIR, STTR, it's probably, in the 20-30% of applications get funded. What kind of success rate might an applicant expect to see?
That's a good question. Unfortunately, I do not know that answer. Unfortunately, I don't know how what percentage of the submissions get funded. Sorry about that.
Marie, sticking or maybe jumping back to the topic of abstracts, how would someone or how should someone indicate their references in their abstract submission?
It's a text-based submission, so all your information kind of has to be put in that text-based format. We do use that PMID if you have a reference, and you can put it also, you can just put a list of references text-based at the bottom of that abstract. Those are the main ways that we see references put in. Just to add to that, a lot of people ask if figures can be provided, and in that first stage, at least, that everything is text-based, so it has to be put in there.
Gotcha. Thanks.
So Marie,
Marie, you mentioned.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say, you mentioned the 5 kind of focus areas for DRIVe currently. How often do those change, and how do they change?
Good question. They do change very frequently, especially when compared to the other divisions of BARDA. We really strive to be where the innovation is. And they really change by talking to program managers at BARDA, really reaching out with that new information if you do have, but it's really relying on the program managers to explore new areas that they have identified as being, new areas to explore. It also comes from us talking with other divisions of BARDA, and helping to fill those gaps that are not addressed by other divisions under our mission space.
So Marie, one of the big opportunities with the FDA is really animal rule-based approval, which is an accelerated path for bringing a drug to market. And it's often really in these settings like sepsis, where there's a very high risk to humans in the trial. In interacting with the agency around animal-based approval, would BARDA come to the table and participate in that conversation, particularly if there's a direct military application? Or is it still, that's kind of outside the place where BARDA would go?
No, I believe that is an area that BARDA will go. I really do encourage, if that's something that you or anyone wants to explore, have that conversation, to talk about exactly what that technology is and how it fits in with BARDA's interests. But we work very closely with our FDA partners in really helping to bring that all the way to approval in whatever way that deems fit. We also look to pave new pathways with the FDA in areas they may not have thought of yet, or new areas they need to explore. We look at all avenues with all of our interagency partners and work closely with them.
And will you be the, quote, go-to person for sepsis for some period of time now? Is that the way it will work, basically?
Well, I'm actually a consultant. Dr. Kim Sharetta is the program manager lead, but if you email that address, you'll get any of us. We'll all, we all work as one team, but solving sepsis and infection severity would be the focus for a while, but we are always evolving at DRIVe. So don't be surprised if, you see that, that area shift somehow, or, that area grow or change. We're constantly evolving and exploring new, when COVID hit, for example, we quickly pivoted our technologies. We looked at what solving sepsis could address, very rapidly, looking at special populations, triaging people to increase allocation of hospital resources. So, we're always looking to adapt to, current situations, other areas of interest that are innovative and have the possibility for high impact. So, you can always contact me, marie.wax@hhs.gov. If you have any questions about DRIVe or BARDA at large, please feel free to reach out. Everyone is very open. Our goal is really to try to help you, all of you, find a successful place for your technology, even if it's not with BARDA and it's with our interagency partners, or even out, not with us at all. So.
Thank you.
And just to follow up to Robert's question in terms of working with BARDA externally, sometimes working with investors, a BARDA investment after the investment's made can be very influential to working with investors. But in their due diligence, they frequently do ask to speak to folks at the agency. Generally, the general rule is that I've seen is folks don't want to talk to investors too much from the federal side. Is that something BARDA is able to do if an investor calls and says, hey, will you give me more insights into X or Y or Z technology and this company? Is that something BARDA can provide with the investors?
BARDA, to my knowledge, does not typically take, investor calls, but what we do see sometimes is, when we have a market research call with you to discuss your technology, it's an opportunity for you to invite who you want to the call as well. So, I would have to check with our contracting officer if, venture capitalists are allowed to come. But, to my knowledge, I know I've seen other people invited to those calls. And if you want to shoot me an email on that, I'm happy to get that question answered.
Thank you very much.
Marie, you might have covered this, but are people allowed to use hyperlinks to papers or websites in when submitting their abstract?
That is a good question. I'm not sure about that answer. I think typically we see it in text-based form. Please feel free to shoot me an email on that as well. It's a good question on if hyperlinks can be included.
All right, Marie, so is it possible for someone to work with both DRIVe and another BARDA division on a project? And if so, how would one submit that idea?
Absolutely. We definitely encourage, the ability to work across BARDA for a lot of our work. DRIVE typically funds, the non-dilutive side funds about $749,000. Typically, we might do more depending on the area of focus, but, we really look to also be that bridge between other divisions that can fund quite a bit more. And the best way to do that is, if you go to medicalcountermeasures.gov and you look at the Tech Watch area, that's really that opportunity to engage multiple divisions at once. But you can also, shoot an email to the relevant program manager and say, hey, for example, host-based therapeutics, we work with our therapeutics division in BARDA. You can always email solvingsepsis@hhs.gov and say, hey, I have a host-based therapeutic idea, but, I really think this is larger than, what you may typically invest in DRIVE. And I think this might be of interest to the BARDA Therapeutics division as well, looking at their area of interest, which is outlined on their website. Can we schedule a call between the two divisions? We're always happy to work across divisions to help schedule that call and have a larger discussion on how something can bridge, two divisions. Likewise, with any of our divisions, particularly in sepsis, which we really feel, is central to all infections, can be addressed in a variety of divisions. We work quite often with other divisions at BARDA, and likewise, other people at DRIVE, are always willing to have those conversations with other divisions. Whether it might be, hey, let's show this initial proof of concept with DRIVE funding, this small proof of concept, and if successful, we can graduate you to, another division of BARDA who can take this on, continue your clinical trials in a larger fashion. That's something that we can talk about in that pre-market submission call as, an idea that you may want to explore for your application.
Excellent, thank you. Actually, I had a couple of questions, but you just mentioned host-based tools in your response there. Are you interested in pathogen-based tools as well for sepsis?
So for solving sepsis, we're really focused on host-based technologies because we know the pathogen-based technologies are really addressed in other areas of BARDA. But, like I was talking before about working with other divisions, if you have a technology that addresses both the pathogen aspect and the host-based aspect, we can talk to you about those as well, collaborate with other divisions of BARDA, if those are relevant. But if it's only a pathogen-based technology, that's probably not relevant necessarily to the Solving Sepsis program, but we can always help identify who that division may be at BARDA, if it's there, or if it's in another agency, we can help with that as well.
Great, thank you. I had another question, but I'll let someone else jump in if they would like first.
Thanks, Jake. Marie, I had two questions. One, I think you mentioned that one of the 5 areas that DRIVe is focusing on currently is related to chip technology. Did I get that right?
Yes, it's the immune chip area of interest. Their goal is to advance tissue chip capabilities for drug development and personalized medicine.
Okay, and can you say a little bit more about that? I've seen a number of technologies everywhere from cardiac all the way to skin on a chip, so to speak. And is there any, is there a specific focus or priority that's of interest that you could talk a little bit about?
Sure. Well, first, I will preface everything by saying you should email the program manager at immunechip.barda@hhs.gov to get a better handle of the area of interest. But just a little bit about it. From what I know about the tissue chip program, it's really looking at the integration of multiple tissue types anchored by the immune system. So they look to develop the microphysiological systems that monitor and replicate components of vital human tissues, and including immune system functions and their interactions. So they're really looking on engineering 3D in vitro human microphysiological tissues like lung, liver, gut, heart tissue or others in a single platform. So they're looking by, adding inline sensors for continuous tissue monitoring, platform materials for automated manufacturing, that sort of thing under the program. But again, here, let me see if I can, I highly encourage you to email the program manager. Let me see if I can put that in the chat here to find out more, if that's an area of interest for you.
Thank you.
Sure.
Awesome. So I don't want to put my Science Center friends on the spot here, but I did just want to make note that if folks do have other questions, kind of in these areas of technology, we do have a few people on our commercialization team on the line, Sharon Ross, Eamon Gallagher, and Alexa Morse. So if you do have any more questions, I'm sure they'd be happy to jump in as well. But Marie, I did have a question for you. So does do you know the Tech Watch? Does that still exist to get pre-submission feedback from a group? And if so, how far out are those meetings being scheduled?
That's a really good question. Tech Watch now, to my knowledge, is currently focused on COVID-19. But it's still there. But what I do suggest to do is the relevant program manager that you're interested in. If you go to medicalcountermeasures.gov, you can find the appropriate program manager to the area that you're interested in. Email that point of contact, and they will coordinate across either agencies or divisions if you want multiple areas. But right now, Tech Watch is focused on COVID-19, but when it goes back, which I think may be happening soon. It's hard to say how much they have, but the lead time I think they typically ask for is at least give them as much notice as possible as you possibly can, just so that they can get the appropriate people, especially if you want to do multiple divisions. That typically takes a little bit more time. DRIVe is a little bit more nimble. We schedule market research calls, usually within 2 weeks. So if it's an area of drive, you can reach out directly to the program manager. We can always reach out to the relevant area of BARDA if you're looking to bring in someone from that other division. But we typically schedule 2 weeks out, and, even further out if you need to. And we really try to be that gap, that bridge for earlier stage development to that advanced stage development. BARDA typically funds that more advanced stage of development. So if you're an early stage developer, really encourage you to reach out to someone in drive.
Great, thank you.
When describing in your budget the order of magnitude, that description, looking at travel, I didn't see any specific instances where a certain trip or whatever is required per se, as far as, for example, going to BARDA and having those meetings for reporting purposes. Is most of that done online now via video chat, or is there a required trip or two that will happen during this?
Well, the pandemic has really changed a lot as far as, how things are done. And I think it's really open to the program manager and the area of interest of how that meeting can occur. The program manager typically likes to at least have a yearly program review, but that is, again, also subject to the needs of that program manager. Some of them have a meeting across agencies where they really want you to showcase your work. Or they have a conference that they like to put together that they really want you to present at. So I really encourage you, that's something that's discussed during negotiations as you move further along. You can propose what you think is best. And, if that's a question that, that you think there should be more or less, that's definitely something that can be discussed during the negotiation aspect of the contract phase. And it can also be asked during the pre-submission market call when you have that talk with that program manager to ask, what their particular needs are for that area of interest, because it really varies.
Excellent. Thank you.
Marie, DRIVE is really, as you mentioned, innovation and earlier stage work and research. Is there anywhere in BARDA that's even earlier stage than DRIVE, that's maybe concept exploration and prior to generating that preliminary data?
Good question. The answer is no. DRIVE is definitely the earliest you can get in BARDA as far as, where you are in stage of development. But, if you do have a concept or idea that is, doesn't have that preliminary data yet, I still encourage you to reach out to the relevant, program manager. If an idea is truly innovative, a program manager may have, may not be a current area of interest, but may form the development of a new area of interest, in your conversations with them. And, we're not really restricted by TRL levels or stage of development. DRIVE is really set up to be very flexible and that they could be more exploratory. We also work very closely with our NIH partners to help bridge the gap between their space. We also work with, NIH and other earlier stage funders for areas of interest in their space. So, having a conversation with a BARDA program manager is highly encouraged because, if BARDA doesn't end up being the place to fund it or drive, we can talk to you and direct you to that place at NIH or any of our other interagency partners that might be more appropriate for your idea or stage of development.
Perfect, thank
you. Sure.
Sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead, please.
Okay. Looking at the cost share a little bit, a lot of folks will have money in hand, in kind in hand, but also they are out in the pursuit of additional funding. How should we look at that? I mean, can we say, look, additional cost share could be pending, not on BARDA money specifically, but it's still in the process of being finalized. Is this something where you guys want to see look, don't come to us unless you have that specific funding in hand? Or is this something where you in the process of negotiation, you can say, look, we understand we'll have this by the time that it's needed inside the program?
Good question. And just to provide background in what you were talking about, the EZBA process encourages a 30 to 50% cost share for its projects. And the intent of that is really to show that you as a company, academic, et cetera, have skin in the game and really are invested in moving this forward. And, to my knowledge, we really are interested in you having that, prior to award and not just when that's going to happen in the development pipeline. And really need to show that that demonstration of where that funding is coming from as well.
Thank you.
Maria, I was curious. So when submitting an application, what kind of commercialization information are you typically looking for?
Good question. This is particular to the Solving Sepsis program. Other areas of interest may not even have commercialization information that's required in their application. And some have, earlier stage commercialization information. The Solving Sepsis program is really looking a little bit more advanced than some of the other areas of DRIVE. And they really look for, establishment of a partnership with, for example, a device fabricator or manufacturer, or that link to a hospital to move forward after your DRIVE funding is done, or you're at least addressing the potential to scale. These are just some examples. Really having that that means to have your technology adopted in the relevant clinical setting. We also like to see your IP secure, to make sure that you're really the one able to move forward with the FDA or with commercialization as well. So those are all really important aspects of the commercialization information required for the Solving Sepsis program. But again, depending on your area of interest, there may be less requirements, different requirements. I know that some just want to see that FDA pathway, are not really concerned too much about the commercialization aspect, but that doesn't mean it doesn't change in the future as well.
Great, thank you. All right, everyone, we have about 10 minutes left. So if you do have questions, I would encourage you to get them in while you can. But if not, Marie, I do have it's kind of a specific one. So would it be a sufficient strategy for an abstract if a technology seeks to diagnose or treat a bacterial-derived sepsis?
Good question. A lot of sepsis cases are bacterial derived, and but what you see from the COVID-19 response, it's definitely not the definitely not all the cases. There's definitely sepsis, fungal, etc. And the Solving Sepsis program is really looking for you to have a technology that can address all types, bacterial, viral, and other. We're not looking for you to have a subset, for example, bacterial. But we understand that COVID is a large presence right now. So if that's your preliminary data is in COVID, for example, that could be sufficient for your application. Really encourage you to look at the area of interest. So if your preliminary data is in COVID, for example, you could have viral sepsis only, but as a general principle, we're really looking for technologies that could be applicable no matter what, whether it's bacterial, viral, or other. We really wanted to address all of them.
Great, thank you.
Can you say anything about sort of best practices, like as success stories or best practices that you've seen work really well at BARDA from a new company coming to BARDA and kind of working through your process? Are there any lessons learned that you could share?
Yeah, great question. Because we do see a lot of people, uh, there are some great best practices. We have an accelerator network. If you don't, some of them are on the line as also as well. An accelerator network that reaches globally and nationally to help early stage developers not only help with the EZBA process, but helps scouts technologies for for Drive, that helps with those wraparound services that may be needed for an early stage company. Really encourage you to talk with our accelerator network in your region to find out more about Drive and to find out more about what we are exactly looking for. The other huge aspect that I cannot emphasize enough is to have that pre-submission call. We see so many people not have that call, and there's these little nuances that when talking with a program manager that help you focus in on your submission a little bit more, helps determine how your technology is in line with your submission. This is an opportunity for people to present preliminary data in depth, do an overview of your technology, provide figures, illustrations that aren't available in the abstract. It also is an opportunity to get feedback from subject matter experts, the program manager, to really understand how where that team is going for that area of interest, where they may see the future potential of that technology, really provide insight into your technology and how they see it fit. And moreover, it typically provides you that information you may be lacking in how you've displayed that information, and how that you may not realize that you're not focusing on this element, but during that call you often find out, oh, I really wasn't talking about my FDA pathway. It's really important to illustrate how I'm looking to move forward. And I really didn't talk about that. I've had an entire discussion with the FDA. I've had a pre-sub meeting. And I didn't realize I should include that on there. It's an opportunity for you to ask any questions, get answers. And if we can't answer it, we'll reach out to those who could. We start that dialogue, which is really important. So I would say that that's probably the most important thing, is that we see people who have not had that call and they really don't have that larger insight. And in the application itself, some best practices are really take a look at that area of interest description in the solicitation and go through bullet by bullet and see that you're addressing every aspect of that area of interest. Quite often we see that, we specifically say this type of technology is excluded. We're not really looking for that type of technology, but but that group doesn't necessarily see that listed in the area of interest. Or we really want you to talk about, we really want you to talk about how you address, bacterial and viral sepsis, and and that doesn't get conveyed in your application. Or we really want to see your preliminary data. What were your results? How can you put that in a simplifying manner, and that that's illustrated in the area of interest, but isn't always in the abstract. So I would say best practices are really to look at the area of interest description, reach out to the program manager listed and have that initial discussion so they know about your technology and how you align very clearly. And talk with the accelerators if there's any wraparound support that you may need, prior to submission, or to help you along that process, to ask any of those additional questions that you may need.
Thanks very much.
Sure.
All right, we just have a few more moments here. If we don't have any other questions, Marie, are there any parting words you'd like to share for people to know, either on the solving sepsis AOI or any of the other areas of interest that are currently accepting submissions?
Yeah, well, this has been great. I really like the opportunity to talk with all of you. And, what I really want, everyone to know is that Drive is really striving to be, that have an opportunity to talk with us. Don't be afraid to reach out. Don't think that, we're not approachable. We're trying to be the approachable, side of government. A lot of times government, I think, can be intimidating, or there's long lead times, or, a lot of people think of government as this, this black hole where you may never hear from them again. Drive really tries to overcome those barriers by having multiple opportunities for you to engage with us, whether that's through our accelerator network, finding out about their opportunities, for us to just emailing us and talking with, subject matter experts like myself or the program manager, or even having conversations with, our director or, program managers about a new idea. We really try to be that innovative space. And we not only work in a silo, BARDA is really unique and Drive's really unique in that we truly work with our interagency partners. We spend an incredible amount of time talking with other agencies, finding out their gaps and how we can help fill them. And, really, we're not afraid to refer you to a particular person in another agency and having a conversation if needed with them, together, to say like, hey, you're kind of in the middle of, NIH and BARDA. Let's see how we can help you out here. Or, DOD really is doing some great work in the space. We really encourage you to speak out with them. Or, I think DOD, we're not really sure if DOD may be the space, feel free to come back to us if it turned out like that wasn't the right point of contact for you. And we can dig around. We spend a lot of time, we understand that the federal government can be a black hole. So we're trying to, really help alleviate that by being able to have conversations with us, with our partners, other divisions of BARDA. We also strive to work with, multiple divisions. If you have an algorithm that, that endotypes, but also, provides input for clinical management, it might apply to multiple divisions. And we really want you to be able to have conversations with both of them and bring them both to the table. So, just my parting words is to feel free to reach out. Don't be afraid. And if you have a great idea, we want to hear from you.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Marie, for coming on.